Okay, Sandra asked, how effective is a green roof in terms of leaking and humidity coming into the building in states like Florida where we have heavy rain? And also pricing and some of the other options. So green roofs are really kind of intriguing. The reason that people like green roofs, there are direct advantages to a building owner, especially in a hot climate. The evaporative aspect of how a green roof can absorb water and then let that water evaporate away can be very meaningful in terms of sort of general cooling. It doesn't always work that way. If the humidity is so high that it actually never evaporates, then it's not helping. But it has the ability to sort of act in cooling in colder climates. The green roof creates a sort of distance. It's not really insulation. People often talk about it as insulation, but wet dirt is not going to give you a very high R value, so it's not insulation in the same way that we think of as other forms of insulation. But it creates a barrier, a distance for the wind, cold wind blowing across a roof, which can pull the heat out of a building. And so it affects buildings pretty dramatically. But frankly, that's not really why there's a big push for green roofs. The big push for green roofs is actually not so much helping the individual building owner, it's helping the municipality. Because what we've done is we've made buildings and parking lots all over our suburbs and cities that effectively capture water and then send it somewhere. And so we're capturing huge quantities of water, putting it into pipes, sending it long distances to then be filtered. And every time we put a new parking lot, every time we put a new roof, we're putting more water into those systems, and we're just completely overcharging the systems that we have. We have so much built area. And so the idea of the permeable pavers for parking lots allows water to just come down, hit the parking lot, and instead of being collected, to just filter itself right through the soil, stay on the site, and therefore not increase the overall needs for the municipality, which is meaningful because when you do that, that's also where a lot of the floods are coming from. People's basements getting flooded out because their systems are combined systems, and you get a big rain and all that water has to go somewhere, and it pushes through and it pushes the sewage into people's houses, and those people vote, and so they get mad and things go haywire. So there's lots of effort to stop the sort of over supercharging of our systems. So permeable pavers would be the one on the ground. Green roofs are the ones for the rooftops. The big advantage of them is that they can absorb massive amounts of heavy rain, and then over time slowly give that water off in like 3 different ways. One way is that it will eventually start to evaporate into the air, so it goes back up into the clouds. Another way is it gets used by the plants, and then as the plants use it, it becomes evaporative again in some other way. And then the third way is it just sort of absorbs like a giant sponge, a huge amount of water, and then some of it will get used in evaporative, and some will sort of eventually drip down to the bottom and find its way out and go to a gutter and that sort of system. But it'll be a much smaller percentage, and it will be delayed. So that the big problem is when you have a big storm and that huge rush of water, well, this is effectively taking away a big chunk of that water, but also delaying the rest of it so that it actually gets to the system, to this drainage system, well after the storm has gone by and after there's a big problem. So weirdly, the green roofs, not that meaningful to building owners, but are very meaningful to code officials and the people who run the municipalities in terms of making everything kind of work effectively. That's why they started showing up a few years ago in the codes and in the zoning codes, and that they would give a lot of overlay stuff where if you put a green roof in, you get, maybe you can have an extra residential unit, or you can build a little bit bigger of a building, that kind of thing. That they're trying to make green roofs economically viable for people because it is so advantageous to the towns. The specific meaningfulness in a place like Florida because of the humidity levels. The thing to say about green roofs, like any roof, if you build a roof well, it shouldn't leak. The biggest problem with green roofs, this has actually happened to me, is that we had a roof, we just put in a green roof and then it started to leak and the clients went kind of ballistic, and I went and talked to the folks who put the roof in and I said, hey, your roof is leaking. And the guy said, no, it isn't. I guarantee it's not leaking. And we went and we took off all of the green roof and we sprayed the roof with water for, forget what it was, 8 hours or something like that. And no water came through. And we finally realized there was a little tiny plastic line going to the ice maker in the refrigerator that, because of the way it was set up, it had to go up into the ceiling and over and down, and somebody had nicked it with a screw or nail or something, and that's where the water was coming from. And you have never seen a roofer more happy than that moment when we found out that thing. So that's the big problem with green roofs, is that it's a hassle. If something goes wrong, you got to move all that stuff around, but they actually are protective of the roof. You're less likely to have a leak if the green roof is there. You don't have the sun beating down on it, the UV rays, you don't have ice and other things kind of affecting the roof. So it actually is better for the roof and less likely to leak, but if it does leak, it's a bigger problem. So there you go.